This week I'm going to be telling you what I think of the skier top handle. Hello, my name is Simon Cade and this is DSLRguide. So yeah, this is one of my most recent purchases. This is a pretty simple top handle with a 15mm rail mount. The idea is that it adds a really solid handle on the top so that you can get low shots, but also it makes it a lot easier to carry your camera. So I'll get into the positives and negatives about this as we go through the episode. So the way it works is very simple. You just attach it onto standard 15mm rails and then lock it down, and then you have a nice, very stable grip to hold the camera with. So there's a couple of features I want to talk about. The locking bracket here is very tough. Unlike some rail mounts, it's very solid and it doesn't slip. This thing is super rigid, which is always good. You definitely want to have a rigid top handle, and these locking things are ratcheting, which is very useful. If you have, say, a follow focus right up front there, then you know that's going to be very helpful to be able to ratchet it. So yeah, that's a really nice feature, and yeah, it's just super solid, and it has the nice feature of two hot shoe mounts, which are both removable. But you can very simply add something with a standard shoe mount on there, and it has a safety lock as well, so you can really lock it down extra tight. And it actually has threads as well, so you could move these to the side, you could add other things. So it's actually quite a nice compact cage to add some more mounting points for your camera, as well as having the top handle. So having a top handle actually adds a lot of uses to your camera rig. It's pretty important, and it's the sort of thing where once you start using a top handle you really miss it when it's not there. So firstly, it makes it a lot easier to carry your rig around. You can take it off the tripod or whatever and just hold it while you walk around without having to before I was always holding on to the lens or the camera, which is a bit tricky sometimes, but it basically gives you a really solid and simple way of holding a camera, which when you're trying to switch lenses and when you're trying to move it from a tripod to a monopod or something like that, it's actually really valuable to have that kind of option. But then the other thing is you can get your low shots with it. So it's kind of has a practical use of just when you're walking around, it's really helpful to have it, but also it actually does give you more flexibility in terms of the types of shots you can get, because you can hold it down low and get a really low shot. You know, this is what skateboarders will be using. They often have a top handle so that they can have the camera down low while they're skateboarding around. So yeah, I've got a couple of B-roll shots of how it only works when it's the right height and when it's centered. So this is probably my only issue with this, is that if your rod system is set up so that the camera is too low, like it is here, you can see that the quick release plate is actually lower than the base of the top handle, and this basically means that when I put the camera on, it is only just tall enough to fit through. You can see it's basically just right at the bottom, which isn't ideal. It might not be compatible with your setup, so you need to have a rail mount which places the camera slightly higher than this one does. This one is designed specifically to be as low as possible, so if you have just a normal one, it most likely will work. What it all comes down to is that there isn't a huge amount of flexibility in terms of left, right, up and down movement. So if you have a battery grip, it's not going to work on your standard rails unless you find some way of raising the rails up. You can get a double rail mount which will actually make it taller, but the way it comes shipped, it's kind of a bit of a gamble as to whether it will fit your camera. Now they do make a Skyer rail system which is designed to go with this, and that has up, down, left and right adjustments, so that would be make it more likely that it would work. But just something to bear in mind, that it may not fit your system. But that is literally my only problem with this. If this, other than that, if you can find a way of getting it to be set up well, it actually works really, really nicely. I'm going to talk about price for a minute. This cost me £145, which, if you look at it at face value, that seems like a lot for not very much. But I think with top handles, it's just kind of the way it is. If you want to have a full cage, then you could very easily be spending at least £500. So this is actually the cheapest way of, the cheapest good way of getting a top handle. Final comment is that it's really useful to have a top handle, and this is a really sturdy, simple way of doing it without costing too much. So yeah, that's it for this week. I'll see you next time.